Chapter 29, Hard Times. When Grover Cleveland stepped into the presidency for the second time, he walked into a beehive. It was 1893 and he got stung by a depression. Remember, in those days, anytime you wanted to exchange your paper money for gold or silver, you could. But the supply of gold in the treasury was way, way down. When Americans realized that, it created a money panic. People began turning in paper money for gold. Everyone preferred gold to silver. The gold reserve was being emptied. Then the stock market went zooming down. So many people were selling the shares they owned in companies that the companies quickly lost value. Farmers had been in trouble for at least 5 years, what with droughts, a grasshopper plague, and falling prices. Now the rest of the nation began hurting badly. When farmers stopped buying goods because they had no money, manufacturers began to suffer. Soon the banks were in trouble too. The banks took farms from farmers who couldn't pay their mortgages. Then they tried to sell the farms. Someone had to pay back the money that the banks had lent, but no one was buying farms. That put the banks in trouble. In the first 9 months of 1893, 172 state banks, 177 private banks, and 47 savings and loan associations closed. By the end of the year, the total was 500 banks. More than 15,000 businesses failed, and that was just the beginning. Railroad earnings were way down, and then the unthinkable happened. Railroads began closing. The Union Pacific and the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe were 2 of the 156 railroads that folded. Mines were shut down, steamers stayed in port, factories closed their doors, and companies went bankrupt. Many of the people who had worked in those banks, railroads, and factories were out of work, which made the depression more frightening. Farmers could usually eat, but unemployed city workers were desperate. Unemployment was worse in some areas than others. The manufacturing states of Pennsylvania, New York, and Michigan were hit hard. 1 out of 4 people in Pennsylvania was reported out of work. In Michigan, the figure was 43.6%. Nationally, 1 out of every 5 workers was said to be idle. In Chicago, 100,000 men were sleeping on the streets. Even those who had jobs faced cuts in pay and work. What was going on in America? Was this the land of promise? Congress passed a high tariff law. Remember, a tariff is a tax on goods imported from abroad. That high tariff helped the business trusts by keeping foreign competitors out of the country, but it made goods expensive for most people. In addition, foreign countries like England and France weren't going to sit back and accept the tariff. They got even by not buying American wheat and corn. That, of course, hurt the American farmer again. First, farmers had to pay high prices for home-produced goods that didn't have to compete with outside imports. Then they couldn't find markets to sell their crops because foreign countries were mad at them. And the high tariff stopped most imports from abroad, so the government got less income from taxes on foreign goods just when the nation needed more money. The business trusts weren't the only ones who wanted high tariffs. Most industrial workers believed that tariffs protected their jobs by making foreign goods more expensive than American-made goods. Without foreign competition, things made here were more likely to sell. But the farmers were mostly populous, and they were enraged by the high tariffs and high prices. The bankers and industrialists thought the tariff was needed to protect American industry and jobs. It wasn't easy for anyone to know who was right. Say mortgage. When a farmer borrows money from a bank to buy a farm, or when anyone borrows money to buy a house or a piece of land, the money he borrows, his debt, is called a mortgage. It is a form of loan. The farmer has to pay back the bank for the loan in installments, a little at a time. If the farmer can't make his mortgage payments, if he defaults, the bank forecloses. It takes the farm instead of the payments. Now the bank has to sell the farm to someone else to make back the money it lent to the farmer.